So we are going to open this up now to questions or comments, and I think I'll just take hands as they come up, because I don't think I can really take a list because I don't know anybody's name. So let's start with you.
And please tell us your name and where you're from.
And I'm really interested in what you said about standardized tests. But here's my question. What about a different approach where the teachers in the school tell the administrators of the school, we're not going to do this? In other words, a frontal refusal to follow orders at the school level. Why is that almost never a consideration? And what would happen if those kinds of things were to be, those kinds of battles were to occur more and more, and where the union would really support its members in those kinds of battles? In other words, disobeying. We're not going to just take our students to the testing room. We're not going to have them administer this test. No, it's my classroom, you're not coming in. This kind of thing. It's a little bit more possible at the university level. Professors do have a kind of ownership of the classroom and academic freedom, but even professors at university don't ever do this kind of thing. So my question is, why not? Wouldn't that be the real place where you could have a real fight and win some real battles?
To answer that very simply, our protests, and the union has been protesting these tests for like about a decade or two, but it's not until, for some reason, Karen Lewis and our group took office that we started making enough noise that we got our allies and the public to understand it also. We got parents to also come and testify against these tests also at our news conferences about it. We had 32 tests and now it's been reduced to 22 as a result of our protests. The reason people don't refuse to administer a test is because your butt will be fired tomorrow.
That's right.
Now, we have had one other city, I think it's Seattle in America, where they were pushing the envelope so hard when opposing the tests. And they said, the tests are scheduled, this big test is scheduled for a month and a half from now, and they spent so much time organizing around and uniting the public around that date that was still 60 days off or whatever. The administration capitulated and then didn't have to do it. But they risked being fired right there on the spot. That's why it doesn't happen. Because you want to live to fight another day. We have conservatively 45 other major issues just as big as that on the table at any given moment. So we don't decide to risk everything over just one of those 45.
Can I just add, it is a good point, and because I'm with the teachers union, we have actually done that. Not for everything, but we have definitely told our teachers, just say no and we'll back you. But there are certain things, as our lawyer said to me one time when I asked him, do we have to do this? He said, be careful what you ask me, because if they ask you to go out and wash their car, you probably have to do it. So, yeah, you're right. You can be fired for insubordination, but yeah, we definitely push where we can. And our situation isn't as bad as yours. So thanks for that question. Do we have it back here?
My name is Brandon Chevry. I'm a federal public servant, and I'm represented by the Union of National Employees. I wanted to ask Lori, because Michael had some great ideas, and I was wondering if you could just tell us a bit about how Canada Postal Workers might frame the debate in a way of, these are the services we provide the community. I love Canada Post. They're everywhere. If I need to get packages and stuff like that, it's not like you send something Purelator and you got to go way out into an industrial zone. And anyways, but it seems to me that you guys, your faces are always in the community, and you could really latch on to, and I know you have, but just to speak a bit about, to Michael's points about what the Canada Postal Workers can do to kind of frame their fight as a community fight.
Okay, so largely what we want to do is to get this on everybody's radar, because I don't know who hasn't heard about what's happening, but we've been gathering stories about the other services that letter carriers provide. you know, something, you know, checking on seniors, intervening when a child is lost or is threatened by a bully or things like this. Just another way to show that of the many services we provide that are, you know, not in the job description, not being paid for, but it's just part of what we do. And I guess just to make it more real to everybody, and in that, you know, most folks in the room are getting door-to-door delivery, and the fact that you may not in the future, I think is going to help to mobilize people. If you make it real, make it approachable to people, then they're more inclined to get involved with your fight. Does that answer your question?
Do you plan more like meetings with different community groups, like seniors groups and groups that represent the disabled, or groups that represent other disadvantaged that really get a benefit from home delivery as
yeah, absolutely, and that's a logical place to begin. But what we're going to have to do is ask postal workers across the country, because like Michael said, it's not the people sitting in the office in Ottawa who are going to win this. It's the people in the communities who reach out to their allies within their own communities, get these people on side. And that's happening. It's been happening. We're getting reports in all the time. And we just want people to continue that fight and spread it everywhere. Yeah.
If I can add on to that for a second, and I've done something that again, the traditional service model unions, the way unions always are run in America, are supposed to talk about, and I forgot to do it because it's not prominent in how we talk about our work. But we care about jobs. We absolutely care about jobs and defending jobs. Why do we care about jobs? And why do we care about jobs? I'm trying to merge into how you share that with allies, the community and the public and allies. When we looked at the Chicago mayor talking about closing 100 schools and our fight to prevent that from happening, which was a 1.5 year long effort, and finally the board was only able to close 49, but they had a list of 100 they published. We care about those teachers' jobs, not because we're lining somebody's wallet, making someone feel good they got a job. What does that teacher mean? That teacher is a man or a woman that's supporting a family. That teacher has a job is paying a mortgage. That teacher has a job is investing in the community of Chicago in which he or she lives. That teacher is adding to the stability, the real health of wherever he or she is living. That teacher loses that job, you've hurt more than that teacher. You've hurt the family. You've hurt more than that family. You've hurt the community. You're taking away and disinvesting in that community when you lose good middle class jobs. But it's not just because someone wants to get a paycheck. Their job means something to the whole of us. And that's a message we continually are talking to people about and understanding. We're concerned about the whole of us. But that's why when you talk about why we fight for that job, that postal worker, that's another thing about who that postal person is. He's supporting a community. Think about it.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Susan and I work for an academic union. So just to say that I really love what you said and looking for allies and also thinking about the interests that we have collectively as having to be part of the framing of our struggles. So my question is for the sister from CUPW, which is about if I'm going to go to my union, I work at the University of Ottawa, at the professors, and be like, okay guys, there's a common struggle here. What do you think the message can and should be in terms of drawing those links between our situations? Because all public sector workers are under attack in the new liberal era. So I'm just wondering if we can talk a bit collectively about how you go back to your own union, because most of the people in this room here are in public sector unions, I'm assuming, given that it's Ottawa. So what has he done?
What have we done or what do we do?
Well, where do we start in terms of like, if I'm going to go tomorrow to my union colleagues and be like, hey,
My personal opinion is the first thing we do is defeat the Harper government.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
But that won't do
Yes.
it.
That's
That's a
next year,
start.
right? What about this
No, but
year?
I think
Not
the
just the
question
Harper
that Susan's answering is,
what are the ideas? How do we draw links between postal workers or teachers in public schools and people who work in other sectors? How do we connect
The elementary teachers and the
the
university
interest?
professors and the public service workers.
Mhm.
And,
I think it all comes back to community and how this is affecting each of us in some way or another, whether it be the postal workers or the teachers or whomever is under attack. You know, like the healthcare workers, my goodness. So we just have to frame it that way, that we're all in this together and we need to fight together against the attacks.
And could I mention too, I've said this many times at meetings, I think we also have to bring it back, and this is one of the things that we spoke a lot to our teachers about when we were going through the struggle last year, and we met with parents, and we said, you know, this isn't just about us. You've got kids. This is about their future. It's not just about the people, this is about the students. This is about the people who are living in poverty, and I think Michael said the other night, nobody ever talks about poverty. They always talk about the middle class. Well, this is about more than just unionized workers. This is about all of us. And students, I mean, it's great to see a few young people here today, but I mean, what's the future for them? So yeah, I think we all have to get involved. And I know last year with our struggle, we did have other groups coming and helping us, and I think they recognized that, you know, they needed to help us, but it made us recognize as a union, we need to get out there and help other people. And we've done a lot more of that in the last 2 years, you know, getting out to the porter workers when they were on strike, the baggage handlers, or, you know, I think, Kevin, didn't you organize something at City Hall when they invited the
CEO.
president, the CEO of Porter, to come to our City Hall when, you know, when they're...
Breakfast with the mayor.
Breakfast with the mayor, when their people are making terrible money and are on strike. Like, we have to be everywhere. Really, we do. Anyways, not for me.
If I got just a little more to add on to that, I would say, you know, I would be appalled at any union leader, any union that was not lock, stock, and barrel helping out with this fight right now in this country.
Absolutely.
We have some similar issues in Chicago. We have coalitions and the Labor Council where all the big poobahs sit together at the table. And we sort of have this understanding that, no, you hurt one, you hurt me. You hurt him, you hurt me. That's why I'm going to show up at his demo, and he's going to show up at mine. We're going to honor his picket line, he's going to honor mine. You know, this is an old ass concept. I mean, what was it? The one thing that came out of the Holocaust, whoever wrote that great, it was a short poem about, you know, they came for the socialists and I was silent. They came for the Bolsheviks and I was silent. They came for the gays and I was silent. When they came for me, there was no one left. We know that. I don't think it should be an issue of how we're going to talk to our other union leaderships to get there. It's like, not how, when, and how hard you're going to move with us.
I think you're ahead of us, brother.
Well, we've got some conservative groups in Chicago again that are afeared of us and that are supporting us too.
But if the University of Ottawa union puts something on their website saying they support the workers, it will be a miracle. That's how far.
Are you kidding?
I think it would be. Well, the leadership is one thing, but the members would oppose it.
I know,
The members would be furious if they received a memo
a lot of work to do.
suggesting that they support postal workers. There would be a riot of some kind.
They need to figure out why that is, and then they need to figure out why that is and move forward.
No,
Donald?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important discussion because I think that I'm a retired faculty member from Carleton, and in many ways it's the same problem. And it's not just the academic unions, it's a problem in a lot of other unions as well. I mean, just sort of trying to think this through myself. I mean, a couple of things struck me. I mean, on the jobs. I mean, I thought Michael had to, or rather Jan really had this quite right. These decent jobs with some protections and reasonable wages are the jobs that students are looking for.
Yeah.
They're not looking to work at Walmart on a contract and subject to arbitrary firing. So, and this is certainly true for I mean, faculty are aware that their students are all working part-time, and they're a lot better off if they have a job at the beer store or LCBO, because they're unionized jobs and they don't have to work nearly as many hours to get enough money to live on. So that argument can be made in terms of defending postal worker jobs. And then I think generally it's about public space, right? I mean, faculty want to believe that they have some protection from the corporate hand being in the classroom, that they do choose their own material and they try to educate people to think and not just, you know, to fill slots in corporate offices. And that's, in a sense, what's going on with the post office and the notion of a postal bank, right? That there should be a space that's free from those guys, and it shouldn't be just faculty that have this, but other people want the same space. And there fine language, you know, that where we can make those connections.
Can I ask how many people here who are part of a union are actually, like me, one of the officers of the union? Quite a few of you.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can move things along.
Look,
If you-
They can try.
Well, I can tell you, you can move things along then. You have to have a will. Yes.
Stuart wanted to.
Oh, sorry, Stuart.
Thanks, Mike. I just, I'd like to celebrate what the public school teachers did in their fight last fall. It was last fall, or is it?
2012. Talking about Chicago?
Everything was blending, but
I think
I
it
went
was
to those
Oh,
rallies. I went to those rallies with, you know, at Jack Purcell Community Center and again at Hopewell here, you know, and they had students out, they got people out, people you wouldn't expect. And I know one thing, when we had our big May Day rally, our first one, you know, we felt really great about it. At the same time as our rally, there was a demo at Dalton McGinty's office with 1,000 teachers protesting against the Bill 115.
That's right.
And like, huh? We were out of touch, and so we've got to do the outreach to people that are out there doing stuff. And at least in Ottawa, the teachers are still fighting the good fight. Sometimes they get their things mixed up, but they're still, you know, that's what I gotta do it. And you know, I was talking in a bus with someone from Carleton who's thinking about. She said, "Oh, it's too bad they're losing 8,000 jobs and they're not going to get door to door anymore." I told her it's not over yet. It's not over yet, and she, you know, you just have to pass this message on, as she said, you invite your friends and stuff like that, and we can do that, and we'll get somewhere.
Kevin?
So these are good points, and I want to move off of what Michael and Donald were just saying. I'd like to just make one connection between the struggles that teachers are engaged in and the postal worker struggle, and in fact, a lot of federal public service workers. There's really two things that really stand out for me, and that is the attack on pensions,
Yeah.
which is connected to a lot of this stuff, and really the general agenda of trying to privatize as much as possible,
Exactly.
which Michael spoke to.
Yeah.
I mean, this really cuts across. It hasn't been talked about as much in the postal worker situation, but it's very easy to imagine that trying to destroy home delivery and jack up the postal rates is a prelude to privatizing the whole postal service, as they just did in the UK just a few months ago, right? So I guess you know, to the extent that that is a big part of the picture, I think we can more directly make connections to the attacks on other workers, right? And this is also just an attack on the whole character of the society. You know, privatization, and Michael started to speak to this, about what it means to attack teachers, but it's also about what it means to attack publicly owned and democratically controlled institutions. Change that, and you change the character of the society that we're living in. So this is about, you know, some bigger issues, not just, you know, individual workers. But so the question I'd like to put, I guess, to both Michael and Laurie is, Michael, you spoke a little bit about charter schools and about some of the strategies around this. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about how Chicago Teachers has handled the specific form that organizational work with allies has taken. Do you form coalitions? Do you just try to invite allies to support things that the union is doing? What does that actually look like? And really the same question to Laura.
It includes several of our union members and staff people participating in a large array of coalitions and collectives that already exist, that existed before the Occupy movement came to America. We already participate in those. Again, spending lots of time doing the two-way communication, the feedback, you know, the push and the pull. What do they want? What do we want? How can we support each other? At events or issue campaigns, we do that. Again, yeah, we do public education. We talk about what privatization is about. We talk about the corporate greed and the corporate grasp that is moving on yet this and that and the other. We also give support. We give strong support to those teachers. By the way, in the anti-union charter schools,
Right.
we give support to those teachers organizing and have actually forced and helped them force creating a union, because the corporate elite wrote state law that the Chicago Teachers Union cannot represent any teachers in the charter schools. So we help the teachers in the charter schools form their own unions.
Right
And
on.
so they're starting to do
There's solidarity.
what we're doing. So we grow like mushrooms, and they can't stop us. We got our fingers in everything. Because of our visibility and our successes, people come to us and invite us to be part of their ongoing work too.
Right on.
Lori, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah.
Here.
And we do very much the same thing. You can't expect that when you're in crisis to reach out to allies when you haven't been there for them before, when they needed you. And that's what we do, is to keep these ties, keep them going, keep them tight, and then look out for each other when the need arises.
Didn't you have a question over there?
Brian.
So I think Simone wanted to
Who are you? Who are you?
I'm Brian. I'm Solidarity Against Austerity. I belong to a union that works for a public sector union in town. I want to respond to Jan's challenge, because it's very much a nail on the head challenge. When you ask the question about leaders in the room within their own organizations, and there's a strong show of hands, it really is like, okay, so there are people in the room that are capable of doing something, as Jan says. The question is as always, what is to be done?
What does it look like?
And when Stuart talks about the May Day rally that happened in Dalton McGuinty's office, I want to connect the two together, because it talks about the role that organizations like Solidarity Against Austerity play as part of the process as well. The teachers weren't out in front of Dalton McGuinty's office by accident. In part, Jan had come out to a Solidarity Against Austerity meeting. There were discussions about what we were going to be doing on May Day. There was a recognition that teachers couldn't come out during the day on May Day, and we were planning a noon hour action as part of that. So the speculation, could we do something after work that would engage the teachers? Jan took the idea back and talked with both her own union and with the other teachers federations in town, and out of that, the tentative and like, God, I hope some people show up initiative started, and it really was, God, I hope some people show up, and let's get a sound system just in case, and more than 1,000 showed up for it.
Wow.
So it's important to understand that these things don't happen by accident. They happen because we can think about what we're going to do, and we can dare to dream, and we can hope that we're actually going to engage people because they really give a shit. And it turns out that teachers really give a shit. And it turns out that most of the people in the community really care about the communities where they are. And the challenge becomes, in part, a challenge for how we change the culture of our own organizations and the community that we're in, so that we start doing this sort of stuff. And what May Day showed with the teachers in front of Dalton McGuinty's office, what the Chicago Teachers Union shows, and what numerous other examples have shown, is that we can actually do it. So the next question is okay, well, what does it really mean to start doing it? And that's part of what I think Solidarity Against Austerity ends up being all about, is we aren't an organization that's capable in and of ourselves of going out and organizing our membership, because we don't have a membership. But what we are capable of doing is fostering certain kinds of discussions and encouraging people to follow up on those discussions and turn them into practical, let's get going work. And that's the challenge that we always face, because quite frankly, most of the unions in town aren't like the Chicago Teachers Union. Most of the organizations in town aren't like the elementary teachers locally, and that presents a challenge to us that we have to get going on. So we can try and try, but we've just got to get on the ground and do stuff. And what I like about some of the things that Michael says is that they're very practical. I wouldn't be the teacher at the pulpit because that's just not my thing. But it's a very practical thing to do. And a lot of people would have trouble imagining me doing that. But there are ideas concretely that we can take on, and it's how to get enough of us in the room that we can start talking about these sorts of things and then take them back out to our locals. So when Susan raises the whole question about having this discussion, it's about saying, I've got to go back to my local and invite somebody from the Postal Workers Union out to meet with my executives so they can hear directly from the people that are affected.
Hear, hear.
Just as when you go to the pulpits, you don't have to be in a pulpit, you can be in a union meeting, you can be with your executive, and that's part of the discussion that we need to be having and moving forward. So all of this is a preamble to say, Kevin forgot to say one thing about Solidarity Against Austerity.
I did.
When he was speaking earlier. We work through General Assemblies. Our next Assembly meeting is this Thursday night at 6:30 at 251 Bank Street on the second floor. The sign-up sheets are all, you'll get notices of upcoming meetings as they happen. And to be really succinct, our hope is that through efforts like this, we build hundreds of Chicago Teachers Union models locally and fight.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd just like to add that when we did that first protest, I asked the secondary teachers if they, I said, I'm thinking of doing this, and they told me 15 reasons why it wouldn't work. I'm not kidding, this is true.
I believe
and
it.
And I said, well, I don't care, we're doing it. If you want to come on board, fine. So they did.
Right on.
And you know what? I think you just have to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to say, we're going to do something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you don't do it, it's definitely not going to work. And who was our next speaker?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Darius, and my introduction to activism was actually being brought to the picket lines when my mom was on strike. She was a teacher during the Harris years, so like as a little kid.
Yes.
So obviously, teacher
Yes.
union organizing has been
Your
core
family.
since then.
We're glad to hear that.
Yeah. I'm also I'm a coordinator for the People Social Forum, which is happening in Ottawa the 20th to the 24th of August, and that's going to be an amazing opportunity for unions and grassroots activists and Indigenous folks, and just pretty much big youth contingent as well, to get together and tie all of these things together for austerity, against austerity.
Yes, obviously.
For austerity. And I'm not here to plug that. I had a question.
You can plug it though. We'd
But
like
yeah,
you to.
actually, yeah, there is a meeting tomorrow if people are interested in coming to that, and it's at the Union of Postal Workers, CUPW on Bank Street at 6:30, I think. So yeah,
Right
if
on.
you come out, that'd be great. But my question was about the allies, because you talked a lot about community allies in the struggle in Chicago, and I know that there's been other situations like that. And I followed, some of the stuff around Occupy Oakland, where there was large contingents of very militant protesters that helped stop the eviction of libraries and the closure of libraries, making big like barricades made out of like that looked like books and like they called themselves the book block and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, like, what did that look like? Was there any key groups that really support, like grassroots groups or youth groups, political groups that really supported you? Was there any like situations where they were trying to close a school and people actually like stopped them from closing a specific school, like where they're coming in, trying to just if you could give us like an inspiring story on the ground, one event, one school, one whatever. I'd just like to hear a story.
Oh God, there's a million little snippets, and I can't tell the whole story of each one. We have a to talk about the disparity in how schools are funded in Chicago. Traditionally, historically, race governs everything in America. Racism is the beginning and end of how a lot of stuff happens in America. Second only to money, but race has been pretty predominant. And racism and decisions made around that. We have a situation where 160 of our 600 schools, 160 of our 600 schools have no library.
Wow.
Now guess where those schools are that have no library?
The poorest Black and Latino communities.
Oh, the poorest Black and Latino community schools. You're right, sir. Well, one school that had been on the mayor's targeted shutdown list was one of those schools that also had no library. The parents at that school, it's a Latino school on the near west side, worked really hard to demand, with protests and demonstrations and sit-ins and overnight vigils, and refused to leave the premises, and the police have to go in and pull them out and haul them out and arrest them, and you get bailed out that afternoon, but they're still going to take the arrests, and sometimes for events we have designated people who are going to take the arrest. Okay, you're going to take the arrest, and everybody's going to go there. You're going to throw yourself or refuse to move. You're going to take the arrest. The lawyers are waiting. We got the bond money. Yeah, we had staged some of that. But this one school, about a year after they fought to try and get a library created for them, the system decided that school is going to be closed. And for some reason, Mayor Rahm's system sent in a bulldozer to tear down the library that had been built outside of the main school building. They used a field house to build shelves and stuff and turn this field house into a library. And they decided with this bogus excuse, well, it's safe and unstable and a threat to public health, and it had been standing for about a year, and students have been using it, faculty have been using it as a library, as a field house. For some wacky reason, in the dead of night, of course, we got word of it that the bulldozers were coming. Those Latino mamas went out there with their babies and laid in front of the tractor. Laid in front of the tractor.
Wow.
And members of our union did too, with them. Stopped it from demolition, at least for a week. Everybody got arrested, hauled away. They built up expense to build fences around this field house so they could bulldoze it in privacy. And that's what they did. It's hysterical. Politics in Chicago, day to day, it's like hand-to-hand combat every day. Unfortunately, in fighting for what is right. And that's real principles of equality, honesty, transparency. These are important virtues. And I wanted to mention earlier that most of your union members are looking for and hungry for leadership. Yeah. That is going to say, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to be uncouth and impolitic and impolite and rude and say that the man is the man. And he is using his racial notions and his money to take advantage of the rest of these people. I'm the Chicago Teachers Union, Karen Lewis says, I am Karen Lewis. You're not going to do that to our babies. No, we're not going to take it anymore. They've got a million stories like that. Bulldozer story.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about.
Was there did you have a question? There was someone over here. Oh, was you? Okay.
Well, it was just the point. I'm Simone. I'm with a federal public service union, and I think, I was one put a hand. Yes, I'm an executive officer, but it's with a local, and with a union that is more what you hit the model is service to the extreme. Canadian Association of Professional Employees, and hasn't had a culture of moving out beyond sort of the immediate issues that affect the members, and not had a culture of sort of really engaging and mobilizing members. So we've sort of, at a local level, a number of us at different locals and different federal departments are trying to act from just within our own sort of little community in our world, and not waiting for that sort of national sort of leadership and guidance. So we've been trying to make those connections first within our own, so like between locals, and then trying to reach out to other federal locals and other unions, but also recognizing some of the challenges, because when there hasn't been a culture of members being involved and engaged, it is really challenging, and we've been finding that. So now we are moving beyond that as well, still doing that and trying to reach our members and trying to sort of all the things that you've been saying in terms of needing to understand the linkages and why you need to fight back on their own issues, but why it's connected to other struggles. So now connecting with SAA and sort of moving beyond even within that federal, wanting to be able to support the postal workers, of course, not just because it's federal sisters and brothers, but also because it's part of that ongoing struggle. But I think that, without us really even thinking it all through necessarily, and now sort of thinking more, that is what we're trying to do, because we have to sort of be building all those linkages, because ultimately we are just all going through the same thing. But it's so, and so at the same time that we're trying to do it at our local levels, which is a challenge. It's a challenge to get people out to meetings even when it's at lunchtime in their building, and it's really hard. But I don't blame them, because that's not what they're used to doing, because they're used to being served by a service union,
Yes.
which is around their contracts,
Yes.
and everything's going really
Yes.
well, and if I have a
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
okay, maybe then I'll
Yeah.
call. But also trying to make the connection. I mean, 2 weeks ago at a national meeting, I got up and I said, I hope we're going to be supporting Canada, kids, CUPW, CUPW, and, said that this, the march that's going to be on the 26th, and got this sort of strange answer at first, about sort of an excuse, well, we've been focused on what we need to do, and then sort of said, well, this is why we need to be doing this, and then people understood, but it wasn't immediate. And now they've put it on the website about the thing. So but it's interesting how things that seem even basic, you have to take the time and you have to do it, which shows. But, we are doing it and we're trying to, and so glad to be able to make the linkages. And one of the other things about what's so interesting about the Workers' Action Group, committee, subgroup, I don't know, working
Subcommittee,
group.
yeah.
We don't worry a lot about names.
That it's also trying to make those linkages to non-union, right?
Yeah.
Which is also a really big important part of it, because of
Unorganized
course,
workers.
what has been part of that strategy by, whether it's federal government, 1%, whichever, is pitting those who have against those who have not. And so in particular, the unionized with the non-unionized,
Gotta be
right?
doing
And
it.
so making those linkages are really important, and that we're not just out there trying to defend
Our own.
what we deserve and our own sort of thing, so yeah.
I think you were next, and then
Well,
the
I
person
spoke
back.
already, so.
Oh, okay, would you like to go?
Hi, I'm Rob Courier from Labour Community Services, for Local 567 member. I just want to add a few things. For the postal workers, right now I'm working on a campaign that's for CPP that the Canadian Labour Congress has out. And one night, 4 of us went out on the coldest night, and Pierre Poiliere's writing, the heart of it, okay? And we were out for about an hour. Too bad it was, so cold, but we were out for an hour. And 98% of people in that writing signed the petition.
Mm.
So we need to go to the people. We cannot wait for the community to come to us, because as you know, for years and years I've been saying, doesn't matter what union we belong to, the government slowly has been knocking us off.
Exactly.
So I know in my blood, a brother's a brother and a sister's a sister, and it doesn't matter who we belong to.
That's right.
And if you need people to knock at a door, what I found out is if you go into their backyard, and the purpose was just to stir the soup a bit so Mr. Polivier would hear that we were there. But what shocked us is 98% signed it.
Wow.
And we sort of were taken aback by it because we expected to be tossed out of
Especially in
it.
his writing.
And I believe with the posting, I believe we're going to have to go to the community because right now it's not being spoken about. You know, it's quiet.
Yeah.
You know, and as to the privatization of Canada Post, when they made that a crown corporation, I don't think they had the right to do so back then because it's supposed to be a government service.
Like Air Canada.
Okay, absolutely. So when Mr. Harper said, well, they made that decision, I got nothing to do with it. There is a way to make Mr. Harper do with that. If we can convince the municipal cities not to be able to put it on their land, then Mr. Harper would have to change the law to overrule that. So it's important that we do get out, get to the mayors, to the council people, to push that in every city. But in here, we gotta start uniting every issue that's out there because right now, we're under attack. And at the end of the day, you know, I heard somebody say, well, I remember, you know, I had somebody say that a couple of weeks ago and said, well, and I'm not going to name the union, but the rest said, well, our members just don't like getting involved. And I said, really? Well, if Tim Hudak gets elected, they're going to be looking for help, brother. So I think the mentality has to start changing of, like the teachers. That was an excellent job. I loved every second of it. You know what I mean? I just want to use a quick example. The students in Quebec.
Yes, that was a great thing.
That there, I mean, I used to talk about that, have tears in my eyes because they didn't give up.
Yeah.
They changed an election.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there, and I like what I'm hearing. Okay, and it's got to be done. We got to spend hours upon hours. So I'll give you my card, and I'll knock on every door in Ottawa if that's what it takes, because we need to go to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brother spoke so eloquently, there's almost nothing left to say.
But she'll say something anyway.
I'm loving this meeting because the ideas that you people are circulating are so dangerous that they're awesome. Especially when if you don't try it, it's never going to happen. So I'm sure you guys have thought of this, but can't the Canada Post deliver a message to every Canadian in the country?
You mean the letter carriers?
Yeah, like the letter carriers can like,
CUPW.
can't there be like a campaign message to every Canadian?
I mean,
For the letter carriers.
Like, asking us to do something, or like sign a petition, or
Connecting
like
us.
mail in a card.
yes, and that's and we are asking for that.
Oh, you have
Yeah,
already.
but
I've
like,
received it.
but you, no, but they can't just take something and deliver it to every house. Yeah. Canada Post wouldn't like that very much if we did that on their
Well, it's
time.
illegal
while
in our
we're
country
being
for the
paid.
post offices to do
Yeah.
that, for the postman
Yeah,
to do that.
so,
You might
but
get
we
away
could,
with it.
we could pay to have a flyer printed out and
Yeah.
sent out to, that's the way to get around that.
So maybe we could raise money.
Yeah, maybe
for
we could help.
CUPW to do that.
Maybe we can help.
Yeah, maybe other unions can help you do that.
Well,
Other large
the
unions with large
communications
budgets.
department at our national office is certainly looking at that.
If you're gonna lose your job, or there's a chance of it, wouldn't it be a good time to practice some civil disobedience?
There he goes again.
I like your style.
Deliver a flyer every day for the next 6 months or whatever.
I think Brian, is it? No, it's Peter. Ugh, it's Mike.
Michael Harrington, treasurer of UNE Local 70263.
Right on.
I have a couple of quick questions for you, Michael. Is the CPU's community strategy, one of the things that, communication strategy, one of the things I really saw, just the way you convey it is, you convey facts, but you tell stories.
Oh,
This is something I find unions are
that's a good point.
extremely poor. They can spew the facts, they can bombard people with facts, they don't engage them. You sell it. My father was 20 years a car salesman. And he
told stories.
This is how you
Good
engage
point.
people. He says, you listen to them. He says, you speak less. He says, you listen more. And he says, you find out what they're interested in. Well, you wouldn't like that color, you like this color. So I'd like you to talk a little bit more about how you use that kind of strategy to engage your local members. And the second question was, kind of in contrast to our friend across the way, can you give us an example, sort of, I'll say a negative example, of how Rahim's, what I would call wrecking crew in Chicago, managed to adapt to some of the CTU's tactics and do an end run on you?
Oh yeah.
Because
yeah.
sometimes we always like to hear about the good stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to see how the opposition has adapted, and then you got to rethink your game.
Okay, because I have an excellent point about that. But first, I'll address the issue of communications and what is it you communicate. Now, when Karen Lewis took office as president of the union, she created an organizing department that didn't exist. So we got 10 people hired to spend time. Remember what I said, organizing is about supporting, uplifting, encouraging, resourcing the members. They are the union. Give them the tools to do it. So we hired an organizing department, spent time doing that, coordinating that. We created and added to our communications department, added 2 staffers. And we created a non-existent research department, 3 researchers, all brilliant people, very smart, a lot smarter than me. Because we want to be sure that we always have the good facts, the numbers, the statistics at our hand in case the media or some opposition asks, or to use for our own public and internal communication works. So we have researched the basis, what we talk about. We talk about, and we try our best, and it's a struggle every day, to talk in terms, Michael, is it, in terms of stories. Stories is what people understand. Stories have basis in fact. And in fact, this is something, those of you that spend time as professional writers, and I studied this years ago, writing is basically the real skill I have to offer anybody, but I learned decades ago, as a news reporter, that it's something called persuasive writing. Persuasive writing is what you're focused on. How to get your message across, not only so it informs, but persuades what people feel about the information that you're giving them. And a story is one of the best tools to communicate quickly and clearly. A real hard life example. There are trick words that you can also use in communicating your message, in creating a persuasive, in doing persuasive writing. So we are focused on storytelling a lot, because the opposition likes to throw numbers and their only story is the budgets are tight, we're out of money, oh my God, what to do? No, the story is that the wealthy, the 1% now own 48% of the nation. 1% of the people own 48% of the nation. That is this state, that state, these Great Lakes, this state. That's telling your story. That's how much they own. We spent a lot of time doing that in Chicago. Your second question was about the other side, the opposition, trying to figure out and anticipate our tactics. We discovered some of the things they've done. There are public hearings. The school board has public hearings. The city council has public hearings on school closings, on charter adoptions, on budgets, on the school budget, the city budget, on schools to be closed. The state law mandates hearings be held not only at school board headquarters, but 3 hearings must be held in the affected community. We discovered early on that the mayor's people were paying the ministers that were on their payroll money to hire a protester, would show up at these community-based hearings, say, I'm here to support the plans to close Calhoun School. I'm here to support it. And we found out from our staff was paying attention, these people showed up. They got away with it for one day, because the hearings were going on for several weeks. The second day they got away with it. We figured out that get the news reporter, ask who are your children in Calhoun School? Where do you live? Now, Chicago, this is the lake, right? Chicago is sort of a long city, south, west, north. And the hearing is about closing a West Side school. this minister had bussed these paid protesters. They got $25 each, we found out, from a church way down here. So the news reporters interview him. So where do you live? Oh, I live at 68th and Ingleside. Calhoun School is way on the west side over here. Oh, really? Why are you here? Oh, because they say we were there at the soup kitchen. They say get on the bus, and we got $25. And I don't know. And then some of the paid protesters, the renter protester, some of them started listening to the testimony our people were giving, and they were standing up at the wrong queue. They were applauding our people, and the minister was saying, no, we're not with them. So that and Mayor Rahm Emanuel and his political organizations, and they're billionaires, and they fund everything. They have a lot of money. They continue to use the same stupid tactic that got uncovered a year and a half ago.
Oh boy.
And they trotted it out again this fall. And we found the renter protester. We call them renter protesters. And then we expanded it in Black community newspaper. We were talking about, the renter protesters were sent there by the renter pastors. Oh, okay, the renter yeah. So we help discredit them by pointing out the folly. Renter pastors. Pretty funny. So they pay attention to what we're doing. They monitor all of our tweets, all of our messages, everything we send out publicly. They have large PRs. The PR department, Chicago Board of Education, last count was 25 people with about 6 or 7 management level people and 1 chieftain. So it's like nearly 40 people. Our PR department is Karen Lewis, the president, mouths like me, and actually 3 staff people. We can't beat them with numbers or money, but we do beat them with the truth and with honesty and sticking by the strength of our conviction and our values. And again, repeat your message again and again and again. Because, the average citizen, I don't know about this country, but I think the stats in America are you're hit by 3,000 to 4,000 commercial messages a day. You don't realize it, but with your ears and your eyes, you get impacted with thousands of commercial messages a day. How is your one message, your one email, your one robocall, your one news conference going to possibly compete? So you have to repeat your messages again and again, and day after, so that people finally pick up what it is that you want them to learn or listen to. I'm trying to think of other ways that the mayors try to outwit us. He hasn't. No, he tried to push through some nasty legislation in Springfield. We beat him to it. We talked to the legislators just as quickly and just as hard, and made sure we had residents that live in the legislator's district calling their legislator, because the mayor had his lobbyists pushing some evil stuff on us last fall, and the legislators just couldn't go with it because their communities were opposing it. I don't think.
I'm going to stop you because just because I have quite a few
Sure.
questions.
And we've got to wrap it up by 9 because
Yeah.
we've got to
Okay.
be out.
So Jane?
Well, one thing that you just hit the word that I wanted to talk about is values. What's happening in this country, as far as I'm concerned, with the government that we have and have had for a while, is so extremely right-wing for a Canadian government to be. What they're doing, I believe, is un-Canadian. All the things they are shaming us abroad, people around the world do not look at us the same way, and then they're destroying the country from within also, and that is very upsetting to me. And then there's Tim Hudak in Ontario. To me, all of these people are un-Canadian. Like, that's what really is upsetting. Our Canadian values are being attacked.
Thank you.
Okay.
Was it, no.
I did want to.
Okay, so you're next. You're next. Maybe we could rent Neil Young.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk to Lori, your name is? I just wanted to say, I was thinking about, somebody said, well, civil disobedience, why don't, have the postal workers delivering something? and which is a good idea to a certain point, but why put them at rest? So I just wanted to make an offer. I am a unionized worker, and I'm entitled to 1 volunteer day per year. And I hope you don't pick a day when it's very cold. And but what I was thinking is that, you know, I think it's legal to follow the delivery person in my neighborhood, and I'm offering to follow this person and drop a flyer saying, this is my name, I live on that street, I'm not going to give you my full address, this is my email address, I'm following this person who comes to our house every day because I'm worried because they won't be coming anymore. If you're worried too, here's my email address, and or try to organize something in my neighborhood. So I'm making this offer to you.
That's great. That's great. That's great.
Not minus 36.
That's great.
Just like the seniors.
But I think if we do it in many neighborhoods, instead of trying to reach out to the elderly, and let's talk to our neighbors and make a commitment. So I'm serious.
great.
That's a great
I'm
idea.
prepared to do it.
That's great.
We do have to wrap up. We have to be out of here by 9, did you say? So we'll probably have another 5 minutes of discussion or questions, and you're next. No, you can go.
Hi, I'm Michael Harrington. I'm with the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, which is elementary and secondary teachers on the Catholic side. I wanted to thank you for all the great ideas and a lot of sharing. Michael, I find your way of storytelling very inspiring in particular. And it's great to get that American perspective, because we look at America from afar and we're fascinated by what happens down there. It's a very different country, right?
Yeah.
We have so many similarities.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you talked about, for instance, the issues of color and such. And I mean, I look around this room, and you know, there's a lot of white faces. So in any case, but I think we.
I was going to hassle you about that later.
I know. So a lot of great things have been said. I just wanted to throw out 2 more things that I thought of, and I was lucky to be exposed to a conference recently run by the Ontario Federation of Labour in Toronto. They talked about the Canadian Labour Congress's commercial to the song Sunny and the ice creams, and that was a real, I thought, building of allies. It was a commercial that got a lot of airplay in Canada and talked about the broad benefits that union membership has brought to society in general, like paid holidays, pregnancy leave, all those sorts of things. And I don't think it's been mentioned, but certainly I know we're probably all thinking about it, the campaign for the minimum wage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
it be $14, $15, whatever.
Yes.
14.
Again, that was something that they talked a lot about at that convention, about how that's building allies. It's showing to people who don't have the benefits that we are lucky enough to have through our unions.
It's huge in America. We're working.
Yeah,
Huge
exactly,
issue.
and we're talking about it here too. So if we can get the minimum wage up, then people won't look at our pensions or look at the great benefits that we have in unions with such jealous eyes, because they'll at least have a reasonable base to start from. So
Thank you. I think the minimum wage campaign is the 14th of every month here in Ottawa. There's a protest, so if any of you want to show up on the 14th of every month.
That's with Acorn.
With Acorn,
I think
yeah.
they're meeting tonight.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I think you're on
I
next.
just want to add that 10 seconds. I went to the last protest, and they were able to get in to see the Liberal individual about the minimum
Was
wage
yes or
thing that they
Nagby,
did
right?
over. They were told, and I was at their process, it's being printed, and in a couple of weeks it should be ready.
Oh, yeah, right.
So that should give, well, that's what's coming out. So I said to Acorn, if a couple of weeks goes by, let us know so we can put some pressures on him, because he had came to a labor-oriented health and safety evening and spoke there.
Yes, I heard that.
So it'd be quite,
Shocking.
so we just said Acorn anyways,
Thank
doesn't
you.
happen, let us know.
Okay, that would be Yasser Naqvi, who's our provincial labor minister, which is kind of a joke, but I think, Donald, you're next. And then I think we might have to wrap it up after that.
2 connected questions. And I was interesting, Mado, I was thinking of the same thing. But also that a number of interesting ideas sort of came up, and you wonder how it's going to happen. And this led me back to the question that Kevin asked. What is this ally building look like on the ground? I mean, did you form like committees of people that would want it to work? Did you try to form more formal coalitions? What did it look like on the ground? And my second question, it relates to both of you. In the old service model, unions often hired or booked people off to fight grievances and that sort of stuff. Do the Chicago teachers and are the postal workers thinking of booking people off to do this kind of community organizing?
What does that mean, booking people off?
Paying
Don't work.
temporary book off from work, so you don't work for a while. You come out of the workplace and work for the union on a special project.
Union pays.
And the union pays
pays.
your wages.
And union
Covers your wage.
Well, in
Replaces
your
your
case,
wages.
would pay your supply teacher.
So does the union hire a supply teacher so a regular teacher could go and help, motivate a committee, make sure that a lot of people were following their local posties around?
No, we have a need for that.
It's all
We have a huge amount of volunteerism. We have a huge amount of volunteerism. Number one, and as far as you said, what does the coalition building look like? Number one, very quickly, we invited large numbers of constituencies into the union office when that had never been done before. We said we want to talk to you as equals and make decisions together on things we're working on as equals. Never been done before. Number two, we go to meetings and are invited to participate in a wide range of coalitional activities around the city and joint projects that are about social justice issues, a wide range of them. Mayor Rahm, weeks after he took office, just decided to start trimming the city of Chicago budget by closing mental health clinics. Closing the city's mental health clinics. We were immediately on the picket lines with the mental health professionals and the patients and communities that were opposing the shutdown in their community. It's no brainer. So who's available, who can go?
Great.
That's how it happens. That's how it looks like. It happens. There's no mystery or magic about it. It's hard work, folks. All of this is hard. It's no mystery, no magic. Nothing mystical. There's no secret sauce. You stand up and say, I'm not going to take it anymore, and explain your case, and that's what Karen Lewis does, and you go for it.
Thanks, Michael. I'm going to end the formal, well, I guess we're ending the real meeting now, by thanking Michael for coming here from Chicago with us.
Thank you, Michael.
Happy.
For explaining to us what's happening at Canada Post. I would like to make sure that everyone knows about the rally on Sunday, 1 o'clock, starting at Dundonald Park, which is at Somerset and Kent, I believe.
No.
Lion.
Oh, really? I've been sending out Kent. Okay.
We'll be loud enough.
Yeah, I know, and for those of you who are, union presidents, vice presidents, or whatever, we've invited our president from Toronto to come. He said he'd come. So, maybe you could invite some of your officials to come too. Make sure that we have your email address, even if you can't come to the Solidarity meetings. If you get the information through email, that's a big help. And on a personal note, I would invite those of you who are officials in your union to maybe come and give me your name, because I would like to be able to liaise. I've been trying to do that anyways, and maybe we could get together in some way too. So I have a pad. I'd love to get your name.
Well, and maybe connect folks to our Workers' Action.
Absolutely, yep. Do you want me to ask people to, well, why don't you say what you want to say?
Well, just quickly, in keeping with this, to reiterate Brian's message, Solidarity Against Austerity is having an assembly on Thursday night, 251 Bank. The Workers' Action Group, I just want to pick up on Mado's point. I mean, the idea that Mado had about following letter carriers around and doing mass leaflet, mass distribution, I love the idea. Others have had similar ideas, and we are talking about exactly those kinds of strategies within the Workers' Action Working Group of Solidarity Against Austerity. So if anybody's interested and keen, please make sure your email and stuff gets on those distribution lists, and we will send out announcements of upcoming meetings.
And more than anything, did you want to say something, Sean?
Not until you wrap up.
More than anything, thank you all for coming tonight, and let's hope that this is going to grow, and that we can all work together against basically what we know is wrong in this country, and probably in every other country right now.
Thank you, Jan. Very good.